Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner with the DeKalb County Library System, and I am bringing to you the last program for 2022. And in honor of that, I wanted to do, we're celebrating the Doris K. Wells Festival. And for that reason, I wanted to do something that was culturally inspired. So we're going to do a piece that's Asian inspired. And I wanted to make it something really pretty that you can maybe wear to the end of the year or New Year's Eve parties that I'm sure you will all be attending this year. So we're going to make a nice necklace with some cloisonne beads and some crystals and a nice double chain. And we're using a cast piece, something that I don't do a lot. Just because I wanted to do something a little bit different. We did use one in our last video, and we're going to use one in this video as our centerpiece. So we will be using one of these as our focal. Neat, huh? I like it. I thought that we would just do something different, and I drew up this diagram, and I apologize in advance. My drawing skills are terrible. I hope you can see that. I'm getting a lot of glare. And I will bring it down to the other camera so you can get hopefully a better look. But we're going to have some chain tassels and some cloisonne beads and some crystals, and that's all going to dangle from our pretty centerpiece that you see right there. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to need for this project is cloisonne beads. We're going to have an assortment of those, some chain, crystals. I'm using 4mm bicones. And the cloisonne beads that we're going to use, I'm using a little assortment. I'm going to use some 6mm rounds and some oblong shaped ones as well to go with my little design here. So I'm going to go ahead and take us down to the camera. Oh, and of course you're going to need your usual pliers, your round nose, square, flat, or chain nose pliers, cutters, and we're using 22 gauge wire today. So let's go ahead and get started. I have not put this together, but I am about 87% sure that this is going to be very pretty. So let's get going. All right, so here's my little drawing. Oh, let me turn it the right way. Here's my drawing. What we're going to have here is our centerpiece, our focal piece, and below that we're going to have a cloisonne round bead and a nice bead cap that will have some pretty chain tassels attached. So those are going to be linked together. And then in the center, we're going to have the oblong shaped cloisonne, which I'm using a pretty red one. That's going to go right there. And we're going to link that to some 3 bicone crystals. And that's going to be linked to the cloisonne, which is going to be in turn linked to our tassel. And that's going to look like this. I can get it up there to the camera so you can see. So that's going to look like that. So let's go ahead and get started and get, we have several components that we need to put together. So let's get to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do the cloisonne with the tassel attachment. Like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that piece started. I'm going to go ahead and start with the tassel. So what we're going to use for that is a little bead cap that we're going to put over our tassels. And for our tassels, we're just using, I'm using a little 2x3 millimeter link chain. The little links are 2x3. You can use any size chain that you want. That's just the one that I'm using. And what I've done is cut 3 1-inch pieces of chain that I can use for my tassels. Okay, so I've got my little 3 pieces of chain, and I'm going to grab my 22 gauge wire. I'm going to cut off about 3 inches. That's plenty for this. I'm going to make a little loop. Scoot it over. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers. I'm going to give myself about an inch away from the end, one end of my 22 gauge wire. I'm going to bend the wire back like that. Grab my round nose pliers and slide the wire down about a third of the way, a quarter to a third of the way down my pliers. I just need a big enough loop to accommodate my chain. So I'm going to make sure that I have about a third of the way down my pliers so I can get a decent loop like so. Let me go ahead and take that around. I'm not going to close it yet. Just like that. So there's my loop. I'll bring this camera down a little bit closer. So there's my little loop. Now I'm going to take my chain pieces and I'm going to find the center of my chain. And I find the easiest way to do that is to just estimate what the center is. You can count your lengths. That's one way to find the center, or you can just kind of guess. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 the lengths. So I'm going to go in the middle. So I have to the 8th length so that I have 7 hanging down on each side. And there's one of my lengths. I'm going to let that drop down into the loop. Get down in there. I'm going to go just open it up a little bit. Here we go. I'm going to do the same for the other 2. Let's find the center. Just going to guesstimate this time. I'm a little off. Move it over. 1 link should do it. This is the right one. Here we go. Let that drop down. Get the 3rd one. Find the center. Let's go over one more. See if that's good. Yep, there we go. Let that drop down. Into my loop. And there's my little tassel right in there. And now I want to just close it up, and it doesn't have to be too many wraps, just enough to keep it in place. I'm just going to wrap that around. You can wrap it around once or twice. Doesn't have to be too much. Just holding, making sure my loop is closed. Once I've done that, I'm going to push down that little end. Oops, long ones. Let's use the square ones. It's better to use the square pliers to push down the ends of your wire because it will fight against the round pliers. It's just easier to use the square. So there's my little tassel. And I'm going to take my little bead cap and put that on the wire. Here we go. Yes. I'm going to make a loop on top, bend my wire back, grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, and bring the wire over the top of the pliers until it can't go any further down the side there. Move this over a little. Till it can't go any further down the side, and then I'm going to open up the pliers without moving them down, up or down the wire. I just want to turn it around so I can clamp back down and bring that wire all the way around between the top of my bead and my pliers to make my loop, just like that. So there's my loop. And I'm going to put that to the side because I need to attach it to something else and I don't want to close it up. But what I can do is cut this off. I only need about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and I might be able to use this piece of wire for something else. So let's just cut it off. And put that to the side. Now I'm going to grab the bead that's going to be attached to this particular dangle, and that's going to be one of these pretty blue beads, one of these pretty blue cloisonnés. Now what I need again is about 3/4 of an inch to wrap on each side, and then enough wire for the bead. So I like to slide the wire in, check and make sure it looks like I have enough, which I do. I have a good inch on each side, so that's good. So I'm going to mark my spot where I'm going to make my loop, bend my wire back, grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire down my pliers about 1/3 of the way again. Bring my wire, my short tail of wire over the pliers and down the side. Open my pliers up, rotate back and clamp back down, and then bring that short tail of wire all the way around to create my loop. Okay. Better angle here. And I'm going to take my square pliers and I'm going to wrap that tail around. Just needs a couple of wraps. It doesn't need to be a lot. Just enough to close up my loop. And I'm going to clip off that little end. Actually, I think I can just push it down and it isn't going to add too much extra. Yeah, I can clip it off. I had 2 wraps there, that's enough. That little end, I don't want it to go flying across the room. So I'm going to take my little bead thing here. It's got a little well there that I can snip that off and let it drop down in there. And then I don't have to worry about loose wires flying across the room. I'm going to take that little end and push it down against the stem. Nice and close. And then I'm going to feed my nice pretty blue cloisonné bead on. Get in there. And I'm going to attach it to my tassel. That's why we left this open. So now I can slide that loop on. Actually, I don't need the bead on right now. I can slide that on, that closed loop down into my open loop. Like so. And then wrap that loop closed. And again, we only need two or three reps. And then I can push that little end down so it's not sticking up waiting to scratch. We don't like scratches. Okay, now I can put my bead back on and make a loop on the other end. And this bead is going to attach to my focal piece, like that. So I'm going to go ahead and make my little loop. And I want the loop to be opposite of this loop. So this loop is flat. I'm going to make the other loop go up and down. So bend it back at a right angle again. Grab my pliers, slide it down about a third of the way down. It needs to be big enough to fit into my little cast piece. Wrap my wire over the pliers and down the side. Rotate the pliers back. Bring the wire under, like so, and stop, because now I'm going to attach that to my cast piece. Let's go ahead and put it on. Now, I could have had a nicer, longer piece of wire, but I was being stingy and using my extra piece. And that's what I get. I get a little tiny short end of wire that I can still wrap around a couple of times, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So now I've got, that's not where you go. That does not go on the center, people. Just ignore that. That is not our loop piece. This is going on one of the sides. There. So that's going to go right here on the side to one side of the loop. Okay. And now the fun begins, because I need to grab my loop with my pliers and wrap that little tail just under my cast piece and over the top of my bead. So I just need to wrap that around. I'll be able to show you a better way to do that when I do the next one, because I won't have as short a piece of wire and you'll be able to see better. My apologies for that. Come on. This is what I get for being too frugal. hold it with the round and wrap with the square. I think it'll be easier. Yeah, teeny tiny little tail. Ideally, I would have had a longer piece of wire, but I was being thrifty. Don't worry, I'll show you a better way on the second one. Okay, that's good enough. That will work. Barely, but it'll work. But there is my first dangle. Everything arranged. There we go. So there's my first dangle. You see that? Yeah. Let's do the other side. This time I won't be so stingy. All right. So I have my chain. Let's grab my wire. This time I'm going to give myself a little longer piece of wire. Actually, what I'll do is, I know I'm going to need, what I'm going to need for my little dangle is just enough to make a loop on top, make a loop on the bottom, and accommodate my chain. So I'm going to give myself 2 inches of wire just for that. I'm not going to try to cut off extra and use it for something else. So I'm going to give myself 2 inches of wire. That will be enough to do my dangles and still have enough for loops on each side. Okay, so I'm going to give myself 1 inch of wire over here from the end. Bend my wire back, grab my pliers, slide my wire about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, and make a loop. Wrap my wire over the top as far as I can get down the side. And then I'm going to grab my pliers and rotate back without pulling them out of the wire, or pulling the wire out of the pliers. And I'm going to bring it around until I have a loop. Not closing that up yet because I need to put my chain on. So I'm going to find my center. Just kind of guessing. Best way to do that, if you're just estimating, is put it on the wire. I can see, my goodness. And then just let it dangle, and yes, here we go. Very nice. Let that slide down and into my loop. Second piece. Again, I'm going to estimate where my center is. By looking. Would you look at that? Very good. Very nice. Let that slide down and into my loop. And last but not least, wow, I'm getting really good at this. Let that slide down into my loop. And there's my second dangle. Yay. And let's wrap it up. So I'm going to grab the face of my loop with my pliers and wrap that short tail around 1.5 to 2 times like we did the last time. It doesn't have to be a big wrap. Once I've done that, I'm going to clip off what's left. Again, I don't want that little end piece to go flying. So I'm going to turn it down into this little well, clip it off, let it drop down in there. And this has got a little thing on a little sticker on the back, so it'll just stick down in there. I have all kinds of little pieces of wire sitting down in that in the little well of my chain spool. Then I'm going to take my pliers and push this little end down against the other wires so it's not sticking up. Here we go. Take my bead cap, slide my wire in the center opening, and let it drop down over my nice little dangle. My nice little dangle of my chain. And I'm going to bend that wire back on top again. Grab my round nose pliers. Slide the wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring the tail over the top and down the side. Open up my pliers, rotate back and clamp down. Bring the wire between the bead cap and the pliers until I have a nice little circle. Here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and close this one up and show you how to do the bead, slide close the bead up second instead of first. Last time I left this open and attached the bead to the dangle. This time I'm going to close up the dangle and attach it to the bead. Same premise, just whatever your preference is as far as putting it together. So put that off. I have enough to clip and hold. Put that to the side. Push down that little end. Nice and neat. And there's my second dangle. Let's go on to the bead. Again, I only need about 1 inch on each side of the bead. And just set that down. There's one side, there's the other side. I can clip it off. All right. Let's go ahead and make my loop. Scoot it over a little further than that. There we go. Add my pliers. Take that short tail, sliding my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers like I did on all of the others. Wrap it around, rotate my pliers back, bring the tail under my pliers until I have an open loop. Now I'm going to attach that to, where'd that come from? I don't know. Attach that to my open loop. There we go. And now I can close it. Just wrap that around. That little short tail, wrap it around the stem of my wire. 2 times is enough. Clip off the end, nice and close against the other wires, against the wrap. And push down that little tail. Nice and neat. Grab my little blue bead. Slide my wire on. And again, I want the face, I want this to go the opposite of the face. Here's the face of my wire, which is the flat part of my wire. It's going right to left, and I'm going to bend my wire back so it's going front to back, like that. So here's right to left, and this is front to back. Grab my round nose pliers. Slide it down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, my wire. Bring it over the top of my pliers and down the side. Open my pliers up, rotate back and clamp back down, and bring that little tail around until I have a loop. Now I'm going to attach it to the other side of my filigree piece. Slide that inside where I want it to go. And just push that filigree down into my loop. I'd have to open it up a little bit. It's a little tight. There we go. Now it's in my little loop. Grab my pliers. Hold on to the face of the loop again. This is the slight little tricky part because you've got to get in between your filigree piece, your focal piece, to grab the face of your wire. Now that's why it's easier to have a slightly longer stem of wire to work with, because now I can just wrap it around with my fingers instead of trying to work with 2 pairs of pliers. I just wrap it around between the pliers and my bead 2 times. And once I've done that, clip off the end. And push down that little tiny end. Against the other wires. Yep, a little bit more. There we go. Nice. And here it is. There's my 2 sides. Moving on to the center. Yay. Very pretty. Yeah. Let's head to the center. Nice. Okay. So for my center, I thought I would have this oblong piece. And I'm going to attach that to 3 bicone beads, 3 bicone crystals. And that's going to be attached to another dangle with another cloisonne, like we did the last one. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my oblong shaped cloisonne to my little center loop here. Okay, and I need about 1 inch on each side of the cloisonne in order to have enough to wrap. So I'm just eyeballing it. Cut that off. Make a loop just like we did before. And the wire back, slide the wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Make a loop. Open up my pliers, rotate back and clamp back down. Bring that tail of wire around until I have a loop. I'm going to leave that open because one end needs to be attached to this little ring. And the other needs to be attached to the loop that's going to hold my bicone crystals. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that open. Slide on my bead and make my other loop. Look at how much I had left over. Ah, hate waste. Anyway, bend my wire back. Slide my wire down 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring the wire over the pliers until I can't go any further. Open my pliers, rotate back, clamp back down, and bring the wire all the way under until I have my loop. And I'm going to use this one to attach to this. It doesn't matter. Either one will attach. Either one will work just fine. But I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to set that to the snap. I'm going to go ahead and close it up because I can leave this one open in order to attach. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that closed. Just 2 little wraps will do it right there under my loop. So I have that. Clip off that tail. It's really coming in handy. Push down that little end. Good job. And let's go ahead and do my bicones. You can see it's all very repetitive. It's the same thing over and over and over in order to make our attachment links. Give myself 1 inch on each side. Clip that off. Make my loop. I hope you're not getting bored with this. It's very repetitive. Make my little loop. Slide that open loop down into my closed loop on my cloisonne and close it up. Two reps, plenty. Clip that off. I have enough that I can hold it. Very good. Push that little end down. Nice and neat. Put my beads on. One, two, and 3. Now, you can always just take the entire thing and put it on one wire, but I wanted everything to dangle really nicely. So that's why I'm doing links instead of just one piece of wire. I just thought it would be prettier that way. That's just my aesthetic. You can do it a different way if you choose. Again, I'm making another loop. This is going to attach to this one. And I've got that open, so I'll go ahead and close this one. Yeah, I'll close this one. Since it's shorter and the longer tail is easier to manipulate. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one up. A couple of wraps. Cut off the end. I just cut it off down into my little well without pulling that thing out here. Push down my end again. Some meat. Slide the closed ring down on the open ring that's attached to my icons. Isn't that pretty? And let's close that up. I'm just going to wrap that tail around just under my loop between my pliers and my bicones. 2 wraps. That's all we need because these bicones are only 4 millimeter. I don't need a bunch of wraps that are going to overpower the look of the beads. So 2 wraps. Plenty, plenty, plenty. Snip that tail off. And push down that end. Good. Now, last but not least, I'm going to attach my center. So I'm going to slide my wire down on my closed loop that's attached to my filigree piece. Just slide that inside, open loop inside the closed loop. Grab my pliers, hold on to the face of my loop, and wrap the wire around. 2 wraps again. Just being consistent. Snip off that end. And that little tail. And push down that little end of wire so it doesn't do any damage, just like all the others. A little better. Okay. And there, ladies and gents, is my focal piece. I like it very much. I wasn't sure, but I love it. There it is. Neat. Now we just need to attach the chain. Isn't that pretty? That really is pretty. Okay. So now I wanted my chain to be, I wanted a standard length, which is usually 18 inches. So I cut it 17 because this is going to be a long dangle. I don't want it too long down on my front. So I'm going to have 2 chains on each side. So it's going to be sort of like this. Yeah, so it's going to have 2 chains because this chain is very, very tiny. And I wanted to make sure it was a substantial amount. So what I'm going to do is cut 4 pieces. Just having that. I'm going to take a piece of wire and find a halfway point. Check, make sure it's even. If it's not, I can move it over. Yeah, this side's a little longer. Move it over a couple of lengths. Let's take another look. Okay. There we go. Nice. So I'm going to cut that right there in the center. Snip that off. And now I need to cut it in half again. So this is going to be one side and this is going to be the other side. Now you can just decide to leave this all together, but I just think it has a better look if I cut it and then link it. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, find a center piece, point. And cut. Come on, give me my little wrinkly piece that I need to cut off. Here we go. Little excess. Do the same thing on the other side. Cut my 2 pieces. Easiest way is to put it on a little piece of wire. Just grab the very last link on each side, fold it up, get back on there. Hold it up, find your center. And snip it off. Just snip that little link right in the center. There we go. Get rid of all those little excess pieces. And then you can double check to make sure they're all hanging the same length. Again, just slide a piece of wire on the very last link of each piece of chain. This is just my way of doing it. And stretch it out. Make sure each one of your lengths of chain is the same length. I can see where it's a little bit longer. One of them's a little bit longer than the other, and I can just cut it. so that they're all the same length. See that? Just a little tiny bit longer, a couple of them. So I'm just going to slide my fingers down till I get to close to the bottom. And I'm going to snip off the excess links until everything matches. And just get rid of the excess pieces. I do it one ring at a time so I don't make a mistake and cut too many. There we go. Nice, neat, and tidy. Now I'm ready to attach my chain to this side. Now I started to just put a jump ring on and attach it, but then I thought, why not add some more cloisonne up here? So I'm doing a couple of cloisonnes up here that match the bottom dangle. Just because I want to. So what I'm going to do is go ahead. I've showed you how to do this several times. I'm going to go ahead and string them on off camera so that this tape doesn't go on forever. And I will be back when it's time to put it all together. Don't go away. Okay, I've got one of my chain sides done. So let's do the other side. So I just need to make a loop for my bead, just like I did the other one. Make a nice little loop. I'm going to let that sit for a second while I get the other loop made. I'm going to go ahead and put the chain on. So I've got my loop. It's open. I'm going to put my chains on, and I just want to grab the very last link of each of my two chains and slide it down into the loop. Okay, and now I'm going to wrap it closed. So I'm going to just take my pliers, slide it down over the face of my loop, and wrap the short tail around 2 times like I've been doing on all the others. Cut off that tail. I have enough that I can hold it. Put that little excess to the side and push down that little end with my pliers. Nice and neat. Put my bead on. One thing about cloisonne is that it's filigree over metal, and the inside is hollow. So you have to find the other opening. Okay, put my bead on. Bend my wire back again and make my loop. Now, this is going to slide into the little corner here of my filigree piece. and make my loop go as far as I can and turn my pliers and close my loop up. And now I'm going to grab my filigree piece and I'm going to attach. So I'm going to go right down into this little corner right here and slide that down into my loop. Just work that little filigree piece down until it's inside the loop I just made. Grab my pliers and wrap it closed. Just wrap it between, oops, the bottom of the loop and my bead. Again, I just need a couple of wraps. Clip off the end. And push down that little piece there. Just like we've been doing all along. Almost finished, almost. Now all I have to do is attach my lobster clasp and my jump ring. So I'm going to take my jump ring, I've got it attached to my lobster clasp so I wouldn't lose it. Okay, proper way to open a jump ring. Take your pliers, put them on one side of the opening, which is right here. And I can either use another pair of pliers and twist it open, or I can just push down with my thumb, my horribly not manicured thumb. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my chain. I want to make sure that the chains are not twisted or wrapped around each other so I can get it nice and neat. Okay, slide one last loop into the jump ring and the second last loop into the jump ring and close it up. Here we go. And then I need my other jump ring. Where's my other jump ring? There we go. I'm going to put that on my lobster clasp. Again, I'm going to make sure that my chains aren't twisted and tangled. Last link of the chain in the jump ring. Another last link of the chain. Add my jump ring, slide that on the loop, close it up. Make sure that it's nice and closed, that those closed and those ends are flush together. There we go. And fasten it. We have an Asian inspired necklace. Isn't that neat? I like it so much. I wasn't sure. Now, when you're starting off with that, and it came out, yay! I love it. I love it when a plan comes together. Very nice. Very, very nice. I am hoping against hope that this video isn't so long that it scares people away, because it's really easy. It's just a lot of repetitive motion and movement. It's just a lot of loops. And once you know how to do loops, you can pretty much do anything. Isn't that lovely? Let me put it on the display and I will show it to you. Okay, there it is. There is our piece. Pull it up so that you can see it a little bit better. We've got our cloisonnés, we've got our dangles, our chain dangles, we've got our filigree piece, and we've got our pretty chain attaching everything, pulling everything together. I like this a lot. I think it'll be a really neat conversation piece when you go out to parties. I think that it would be a very good way to get back out there into the world, or at least for me. I haven't gone anywhere in so long, it's not even funny. It's ridiculous. And this is very pretty. I was going to say minimal, but I don't think it qualifies for that. Too much going on. What do you think? Now, those of you who get kits are going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cloisonné beads. You can do this any way you want. This is just the way I did it. But you don't have to do that. You can take these beads off of the chain and put them down in here in your design. If you'd rather do that, it's entirely up to you. But this was just my little vision. And I wanted to be true to that. And so that's what I did. And it came out exactly the way I envisioned it, pretty much. Wow. That's kind of awesome when you can take something, put pen to paper, and then actually make it work. I love that. Doesn't always come out that way, I can tell you that right now. But this one actually did. Let me know what you think. Please tell me. I would love to know what your opinion on this is. And I would love to get your feedback on this video. I'm hoping that I had enough light. It was a very, very overcast day, and I have a lot of lights on trying to counteract the lack of natural light. So I'm hoping that this came out well, really nicely for our final piece of the year. So until 2023, I hope that you have enjoyed our program this year. Please let me know. You can get in touch with me at jewelrygin20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com. Let me get a little closer so you can get a better look. And you can send me pictures of what you made, your version of this, how you decide to put it together. Let me see what your genius is. You can also post it on the library Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DCAB library. We would love to see it. Again, we're celebrating the Doris K. Wells Festival for diversity and inclusion of all different cultures. And that's why I chose these pretty cloisonné pieces to do something Asian inspired. So please enjoy the rest of the year. I don't think we're at the end of it yet. Please enjoy the rest of the year, the rest of your week, your weekend, until 2023. I'm going to say so long, Happy New Year, and we will see you next year. Bye-bye. If I can get this to go up. Okay. What a way to end the year. See you later. Bye-bye.